Mark Auslander, the director of the MSU Museum and on the faculty in anthropology and history here. And this is my colleague Chung Anna Hanfora, who's our director of development here at the museum. We are part of a sort of somber day of commemoration and celebration honoring survivors of sexual violence and their families everywhere. Some of you just gathered to hear a really beautiful carillon concert that both had an original composition and a number of popular songs honoring survivors. Just magnificent. I never thought we'd get to hear Beyonce on the carillon, and it was magnificent. It's just wonderful. In a few hours, we'll be opening in the museum in the building behind us an exhibition that many of the people here have worked long and hard on. This is an exhibition, Finding Our Voice, Sisters Survivors Speak, that is collaboratively co-curated by sister survivors, some of whom you will hear, and their allies and members of the museum staff have been working to create an exhibition with a remarkable group of artists and others that tells the story of the enormous crisis of sexual violence we're also familiar with, a crisis also of faith betrayed, of institutional failure, and our hopes for institutional transformation. And this moment here that we're gathered together is really in that spirit, the planting of a tree at American Beach. This is an idea we've been exploring with the sister survivors for some time. And maybe, Chung Anna, you can just say a little bit about how this exhibition project developed and why trees are so important to it.
Well, this exhibition has really been a labor of love. When I first started at the MSU Museum a year ago, I had no idea that I would be learning so much about the reproductive cycle of gypsy moths and so much about preserving textiles. And I knew that when I first spoke to Mark about looking for an opportunity to do something that is supportive of survivors at the MSU Museum, under his leadership has really stepped up. And preserving, we started with preserving the ribbons that were on all of the trees around campus that were dedicated to individual survivors. But the process of preserving those textiles, those ribbons, has really led us to an amazing community co-curated project that we are so honored to be a part of, to have really earned the trust of our fellow curators, the survivors and allies and family members. And it's just really amazing to be a part of this whole process, and we appreciate everyone who has supported us through this whole thing.
So as we prepare for the tree planting, we're really honored that Emily Proctor from the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians, a member of the Tribal Council, and some wonderful young people who help represent the Native communities of Michigan, have traveled here today to be with us. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement, and then we'll prepare the ground for placing this beautiful tree in its new home. Emily.
Ani Buju, Nigaman Bamewe Du Nadijnakas Jijak Dodam. Hello everyone, my name is Maya. I am from the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawas and also Oneida from the Oneida Nations of the Thames in London, Ontario. I'm here to read the land acknowledgement for everyone here. We collectively acknowledge that Michigan State University occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the university resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Native nations, for the historic indigenous communities in Michigan, for indigenous individuals and community who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from the homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Michigan State University more accountable to the needs of American natives and Indigenous peoples.
And so our next piece for honoring our tree planting, we'd like to invite Miigwants to engage in a opening prayer and preparing the site. Sure. So if you would be able to follow us, or you could sit here and then you could put it in. So.
Buju wabzi anakun indigenous kazmishikin and dodam Chicago ninginjin dados odawas agat ganing nandonjaba odawas silbono jibboy medewan queen and dow odawa ganaxin and dorban dagwis meda nishtanan and dansa babunigas. Mahomigach.
Miigwants, if you'd like to, yep. And so Miigwants is placing the one of our sacred medicine sema into the place, the home where our beautiful natig tree in Anishinaabe will be placed. So we'll give her a few moments. Miigwach. Bujo, Odamanquay and Dujnakas, Migizi and Dodom, Lansing and Donjaba, Atikamek and Donjaba, Harbor Springs, Enda. Bujo, Emily Proctor. I am known in my community as Strawberry Woman. My clan is Eagle Clan. I am from Cross Village, place of the Prayer Sticks, Atikamek, and also Lansing, the south side of Lansing. And I currently live in Harbor Springs with my partner, Eric Hemingway. And I also work for Michigan State University Extension. So Chi-miigwech to everyone being here, working with Mark and the survivors, the family, the community. This has been a beautiful start to a great conversation and being able to move forward to share our support with folks here on campus, but also to share with you the importance of trees in our community. We have seen much hurt over hundreds of years, right? And we've seen colonization, we've seen assimilation policies, and yet folks have endured, right? Our story, oftentimes you'll see, is a story of tragedy, of much loss, but we're still here, right? We are resilient, we have faith, we have community, we love each other, and we support each other. And I think that an important piece that you're doing here today with our beech tree is a great representation of how we've continued to support ourselves, and that's through ceremony, through tradition. Trees are an important piece to who we are as Anishinaabe in my teachings. And each Anishinaabe you talk to will have a variety of different teachings too, but I can tell you that trees last hundreds of years, as we were just talking about one of the trees on the property here. They are strong, they are resilient. We care for them, they care for us. When a person is grieving, we walk among trees, we touch our trees, we spend time with them, they are living. So as part of our medicine, part of our teachings, adding more trees to our community, to the world around us, is ceremonial, it's vital, and it's something we've done for thousands of years, and they continue to care for us in the same way, right? So when we talk about grieving and loss, again, with many of our women, our children, and our men, LGBTQ, many folks across our communities continue to experience sexual assault, sexual violence, human trafficking, right? In Indigenous communities, it is one of the largest representation of folks who are abducted, assaulted, and murdered, and still go missing. There are minimal to no funds, there are minimal to no reporting mechanisms, and oftentimes we find reporting is difficult too for a variety of reasons. Through this partnership and this ability to meet with you and work with the museum and folks across campus is vital, so we can support each other in moving forward in a positive and good way. Chi-miigwech for inviting us and for being here this beautiful day on campus.
Thank you. It means so much that you're here and that this tree um, has such a fine and blessed beginning here in this place of honor. We are so grateful to our friends in Landscape Services, to Steve Trost, and to everybody who's been involved in helping with the selection of this tree. And at this point, if it's okay with you, Brian, if you don't mind speaking over the hydraulics, we're going to allow the tree to begin to move towards its home, and we'll hear some remarks from Trustee Brian Mosallam, who has been, for many of us, a heroic lone voice at times, defending, standing in solidarity with the sister survivors during some very dark and difficult and challenging moments. So it seems to us deeply appropriate that we're going to hear from Brian Mosallam right now, as this tree which honors survivors, which honors the sister survivors, and their families around the world. And then we will invite some of our youngest sister survivors will come and help read the dedication and place it. And this tree, we hope, will continue to grow and be a space of learning and reflection and contemplation and spiritual strength, really, for everyone. On a campus that has not always done its best, we know, that has betrayed the faith that was invested in it by many, many young people across a 30-year span. This tree symbolizes our commitment to trying to do better. Trustee Mosallam.
Thank you for the kind intro. Nothing heroic about anything that I have done. What I have done in the past is just basic common sense. Thank you for having me here today. I'm honored. I thought that it was important that the board was represented here and show of our solidarity and the change in tone from the overall this collective board of trustees. I think it's important that as we plant this tree, that in honoring our courageous survivors and their courage, it's not to turn the page on this chapter. As April passes and May 1 comes and Sexual Assault Awareness Month is gone, it's not to say that we shouldn't be talking about this anymore. So this is part of our past. This is something that I think is very important that we never forget as an institution. To all our courageous survivors on campus, and the ones that have been hurt in the past, I think you saw President Utpa's tone and his apology and sincerity. I think you saw that from the majority of this board, and we hope to move forward with you. I ask that all of our sister survivors, all of the courageous survivors, continue to hold MSU accountable, to continue to push for institutional reform, to continue to push for all that is right, and understand this, that you do have trustees that will partner with you, alongside of you, as we move this university forward and as we help you heal and move to this next phase. So I want you to know that we will never forget our past. Thank you for having me, and that we want to be your partner in the future to move this institution forward. Thank you.
Well, they're not playing Beyonce, though. Thank you, Trustee Mosallam. The series of projects that we celebrate today, the planting of the tree and the exhibition you're about to see, are made possible by the generosity of an important partner, Graywall Law Firm, of Okemos, many of you know, and here to represent the firm is Mick Graywall, the firm that has generously underwritten both the dedication of the tree and the exhibition opening this evening. Mick.
Courage, strength, hope, advocacy, and justice. This is what I see when I see survivors. I see survivors here that we represent. I see survivors here that we don't represent. But when I look at all of you, those are the characteristics that I see. I also see family members here, and to me, they are also survivors. As this tree is planted, I want to thank each and every survivor, all of you that are here, and all of you that are across the United States, for what you have done. I have found, as I've spoken to many of you these past years, that each of you is unique and has a strength that is unyielding. You have put yourselves out there in the universe to help others. Your stories are now part of history, and change is happening. Slowly, but it is happening. I see courage and hope as I watch all of you. Hope for our communities, hope for change, and hope for humanity. This tree that is being planted today is a living symbol of that hope, that strength, that courage. As this tree grows and thrives and reaches for the sun and stars, that is exactly what each of you are doing. You are growing, you are healing, you are giving a voice to each and every survivor that is out there. Thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do. I truly am humbled to be in your presence and I'm honored to be part of this mission. Thank you.
We'll next hear from a wonderful colleague who really was at the very beginning of this project. Frank Tuloski is the director of the W.J. Beale Botanical Gardens and Arboretum, so he is the guardian, the curator, as it were, of all these beautiful trees. And when we were sort of miraculously brought together a little more than, I guess, a year ago, when Valerie Van Frank, who's here today, and the other parents and allies, that became the organization later known as POSSE, Parents of Student Survivors Engage. There was a dark period, really, if you cast your mind back to January of 2018, when everything seemed, for many of us, without hope on this campus. And then there was this glimmer of light. These amazing 220-odd ribbons began to appear across the coniferous and deciduous trees of the campus. Frank and I would look at them at times to time. It then became clear, Frank, who was obviously highly attuned to everything that's going on with the trees, became aware that there was pest infestation, and that these beautiful tulle ribbons that had been placed lovingly on the trees were a potential vector of contagion and risk for the trees, because gypsy moth caterpillars can nest within them, and the chrysalis cycle can of course intensify. So as Chung Anna said, none of us knew we were going to learn so much about gypsy moths. And Frank was key to the creation of a beautiful compromise with Valerie and the other parents and the sister survivors that the museum was able to play a role in too, of figuring out that the parents who had placed, the allies who had placed the ribbons would be allowed respectively to untie them, that these would not, these symbols of penance and prayer would not be summarily destroyed. Our wonderful friends in Landscape Services were very committed to this, understanding that the trees are in a sense temples of our hopes and aspirations, and it was only fitting that the trees be honored as the survivors were honored. So Frank, it's been a long journey, and Frank is recovering from an illness, but he's with us today, and always seems to me, whether or not he's sitting or standing, a towering oak, and it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Mark, and everybody else so far who's spoken this morning or this afternoon for your words. I just wanted to speak a little bit for the trees, if I could. Some people have always kind of called me the campus Lorax. I guess I bear that medal with pride. But I'm so pleased that we were able to plant this tree today in honor of the sister survivors and in recognition of our failings at Michigan State. I think that there's a lot, hopefully we do, that will outshine this in the future as well as we have in the past. One of the things that I'd like to say is that we are gathered here in a sacred space. This is the sacred oval of Michigan State University. This is the land upon which the university was first founded. Directly behind us, of course, we stand in the shadow of Beaumont Tower, which is the location of the first campus building, College Hall, that was built here. And not too far to our right, Saints Rest, one of the original dormitories that was built here back in the middle of the 19th century. This parcel of land, which was the first parcel of land, was partially cleared for the campus. But when we look at some of the very early photographs, we see many of the old trees that were left. They were rather young, strapping saplings at the time. Of course, we're talking over 150 years ago. But if we look amongst us, we can see many of the old oak trees here are the survivors of that original clearing and have grown and prospered. There's a tree directly behind us, very close to where our tree is going to be planted, which snapped off in a windstorm about 2 years ago. And that tree really stands for a lot of what we look towards trees for in terms of strength and survivorship and resilience, if you will. As a matter of fact, Dean Chris Long from the College of Arts and Letters nicknamed the tree our resilient oak, and I think that's a very fitting term for it. When that tree came down, I was very interested to see that there was a metal cap on top of it, indicating that tree predated the campus. And using tree ring analysis, we were able to actually date that tree to be over 350 years old. So that tree definitely has seen a lot of history, both Michigan State history and prehistory of pre-settlement and peoples, native peoples moving through this parcel of land and utilizing it, as we know from our earlier conversation here this morning. And so growing in the shadow of that tree, of course, will be our new tree, our beech tree, which we are so pleased to have planted. This is a long tradition at Michigan State of planting a tree to commemorate, to recognize, to acknowledge, to celebrate, to acknowledge aspects of humanity, of our individual lives, our collective lives. Starting in 1865, when President Abbott first planted the first commemorative tree here on campus, a white pine by Cole's house, in recognition of the birth of his daughter, who got married under that tree 21 years after that tree had been planted. That tree is still with us today and growing there. To a grove of oak trees, red oaks that were planted in honor of all of those MSU graduates who had been lost in the Great War, World War I. To a variety of other trees, hundreds of trees planted here on campus in recognition of retirements, of passings, of celebrations of life for so many. This carries on a long tradition, I think, not only here at Michigan State, but of humanity in general, that we plant trees in recognition of our lives as a reflectance of who we are. We look to trees for strength. We look to trees for their resiliency. We look for the trees for the things that they give us and that we can give them. And so it is a great pleasure and honor to have this tree added to our collection, this American beech tree, Fagus grandifolia, to continue this long tradition of growing trees and to keep this sacred space green with trees, and so that MSU can go green and stay green. So again, thank you very much, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Frank. We're also very grateful to the Department of Forestry for many reasons, of course, on the theme of trees, but there's a very specific thing that in this project, when you see the exhibition, you'll see at sort of on the very final wall, you'll see this extraordinary staffs of strength, and this comes really out of an idea that Valerie Von Frank had as well. Back as we were in again that sort of dark period of last December, when yet again there didn't seem to be all that much hope for institutional change. We knew between the holidays families were coming back, sister survivors were coming back, and so Valerie conceived the idea of an expressive arts workshop and worked with my friend Nan Doolittle, who came in from Seattle, and my wife Ellen Schatzsnyder to create an expressive arts workshop to create staffs of strength out of the wood, the branches from the very forests that we all loved. And the forestry department, again came to our rescue, allowing for the drying kiln to be used. So there are many things that we're indebted to the forestry department, but that very quiet gesture that allowed these very beautiful objects that you're going to see inside to be made, to provide an external sense of strength and beauty, means a great deal to us. And here to represent the forestry department is the department's chair, Richard Cobain.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate being here today. And I'm going to expand on some of the themes that Frank started and say a few words about how trees and forests bring us comfort and help us and help the earth heal in many ways. So current science is demonstrating that we find great emotional comfort in trees. We know that the presence of trees promotes positive mental health. It promotes resilience. In cities, trees in neighborhoods bring people together and help form stronger communities. So we have several studies like this that support the emotional and social benefits of trees, and we don't fully understand all the mechanisms yet from a scientific perspective. One explanation might really go back to humanity's deep connection with trees and forests. And I think that Shel Silverstein's book, The Giving Tree, illustrates really nicely the benefits of trees. And you probably remember the plot. It's about a relationship between a tree and a boy as he grows into a man. And the tree initially provides a place to climb and play. It then provides a source of fruit and income. The tree provides wood for a house and for a boat. And finally, a stump that is a quiet place to sit and rest. Deriving benefits from trees, however, really requires that we care for them. And that's the essence of sustainable forestry. In fact, it was the lack of caring for trees in Michigan in the late 1800s after European settlement that really brought to light many of the hidden benefits of forests. And that includes many of these things you're familiar with: wildlife habitat, soil conservation, clean water. And if you think about just those things as being really fundamental aspects of healthy ecosystems, and clean water also being a fundamental aspect of human health and well-being, more than half of the drinking water in the US today originates from a forest. So we have to take care of them. The recovery of forests from the decimation of the late 1800s also speaks to resilience and hope. And it's something that all of us here hold on to. So no observer of Michigan's landscape in the late 1800s would have predicted the beautiful and productive forests of Michigan today that provide so many benefits. In the modern era, issues have become more complex, and perhaps the need for healing has increased. And trees and forests, again, have a really important role. With respect to climate change, forests are removing currently about 15 to 20% of carbon emissions to the atmosphere through photosynthesis and storing carbon in wood. And that number could really be doubled with good forest management. So forests can really contribute and go a long way towards healing the Earth's climate. Our world really needs healing at several levels. And forests and trees provide generous gifts. They provide resilience and strength to our emotional and physical lives. And at the same time, we have to care for trees and forests. And my hope is that this tree will be a reminder of resilience and hope, and that how we care for each other and that how we care for the earth are deeply connected. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard, for those beautiful remarks. It's our hope that the tree will stand for generations as a place of comfort, and also a reminder both of our failures and our hope that our better angels will triumph. Throughout this entire process, the exhibition has been guided by a remarkable group of young women, of sister survivors, all of them eloquent, articulate, and tough, pushing us every day to honor the promise to create an exhibition that allows their voices to speak. One of the most eloquent and strongest of those voices is Amanda Smith. We're delighted that she's here today to share her reflections on this moment.
Hello. Some of you may not know me, but for those of you who don't, my name's Amanda. I'm a sister survivor, and I'm the development and communication lead for the Army of Survivors. And I'm also a co-curator for the Finding Our Voices exhibit. Throughout the past year, trees have come symbolic for a lot of us. For me, I've always really had a soft spot for nature. So when Valerie gave each of the sister survivors a tree, she didn't really know how much that little teal ribbon would mean to me. There are many things that I could stand here and say, but I think to help you understand a little bit better, I want to take you back to about a year ago as part of my healing journey when I wrote a little bit about my tree in general. You've been here watching everyone and everything for years. You've become part of this university's soul, rooted into the earth. I am merely a human, but you will be here long after I have gone to watch forevermore. I stand here, a mess of a person, like a tree who has just been through a storm. Parts of me have been broken and they may never be repaired. Looking at you standing tall makes me realize that I too can weather this storm and I can flourish. There's still room to grow and give to the others around me. You are the eyes of the universe, seeing it all, shading everyone, but never knowing what lies in their shadows. You stand tall with no judgment, and I hope that in this particular storm, it might be almost over. That you will be here when my kids walk these streets, when they can say they're proud to be Spartans. You can provide them with the inner strength and the guidance that you have given me. I would like to take this time to say thank you to Mark and to Valerie, because without you guys, my healing would not be nearly where it is today. The rest of the committee, they took a huge risk with working with us, and I will forever be grateful. You've kept me grounded, and you've also taught me to reach higher, much like our hopes for the American beech tree that we're planting here today. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Amanda. At this point, we'd love to ask three sister survivors to come forward. Amanda Kosman and Mimi Wegner and Katie Black, who have something special for us today. So Mimi has written, so Amanda's written a poem. Actually, two poems. One poem you'll see is, which you wrote a year ago, is in the exhibit, and Katie's going to read it for us. And then Amanda has a new poem that was written last night, last night. And then Mimi's going to share something with us too.
I'm Katie Black, and this is Amanda's poem. It's called Where I'm From. I am from the time I landed on the beam. The smell of chalk roamed freely. I am from my darkest time, tears rolling down my face. I am from the time I had experienced something that would be in every parent's nightmare. The time where there were suicidal thoughts. I am from the time of sadness, where each statement counted. I am from a family where things used to be clear. I've gained pain and sadness, the horror that comes to mind when I envision what he did to me. I am from the past. Pasts may never be forgotten, but there's nothing we can change. However, we decide our futures, the happy moments. I fall from the past, but land in the future.
Share your new poem with us.
Hi. Hi. Okay. So my name is Amanda Kosman, and I decided to write this poem for this event today. It's called My Hope Tree. My hope tree is a place I go if I'm sad, mad, or just need a place to lie low. I can go tomorrow if I have some sorrow, or in a year just because of my fear. My hope tree never leaves me. It only grows. It never dies, so it'll always be around to hear my cries. I go to this tree when I'm overthinking, only to realize my thoughts are just sinking. If I lose all of my faith, I go to my tree, where I can fly free, for this tree will always be near me.
Hi, I'm Mimi Wagoner, and I'm 12 years old. I am one of the sister survivors. I would like to thank all the sister survivors before me. One thing that has stuck with me is a quote by Allie Raisman. She said, "We may suffer alone, but survive together." My hope is for people to visit the museum and learn from our story. So together we can make real change to prevent something like this from happening ever again. Thank you.
Throughout this long journey of the last few years, a constant voice of decency, integrity, scholarship, and hope in the midst of times when we all seemed hopeless has been Rebecca Campbell, Becky Campbell, our colleague, known to many of you, a faculty member in psychology. She's chaired the expert working group on relationship violence and sexual misconduct that has pressured this institution to live up to its promise again and again, trying to mobilize resources. It's been an upward battle many times. Becky's also a member of the academic board of the museum behind you, and has helped guide us in this long and difficult process as we worked with the sister survivors, with the parents, and all learned from each other, trying to come out of this long, dark abyss with a sense of renewed resolve to be decent and kind and compassionate to one another. Becky has been a model for all of us, and I can think of no one better to help bless the planting of this tree. Becky Campbell.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. In my role as a research psychologist, I've been studying sexual assault and its impact on survivors for about 25 years now. And in my research interviews, I asked survivors what it was like to first tell somebody about their experience of being sexually assaulted or sexually abused. I asked them what happened in their disclosures and their help seeking, and what helped them along their journey and what didn't help them on their journeys. And one of the things I often hear from survivors is that when they first disclosed what they wanted more than anything was for someone just to listen and bear witness to the truth of their telling. But that doesn't happen very often. All too often we jump ahead to what has to happen next. Who else needs to be told? What are the steps? Who do we report to? Without that fundamental moment of holding still and bearing witness to the truth that has just been shared with you. And so they ask me whenever I do public speaking to gently, or maybe not so gently, remind all of us of our fundamental responsibility to survivors, to listen and to hear what they say. And I think that's also the power of the trees, is to stand and to hold silent witness to what truth has been told, and to remind us of that very fundamental responsibility that we have to survivors. So whether you're standing, whether you're sitting, whether you're kneeling with survivors, to hold still, to be quiet, to listen to what they say, and to believe them. And then when they are ready, to help them on the next parts of their journey. Thank you.
So as we contemplate this this hope tree and this listening tree, I'd like to ask Kat Ebert to come up. Kat has been a sister survivor as well, has been a resilient voice, especially for the struggle to honor the experiences of our LGBTQ community, and to struggle for a space that is safe and compassionate for all gender nonconforming persons on this campus and beyond. Kat has been a great partner in this journey, and I'm so pleased you're here today.
The last year at Michigan State has been a difficult and painful one, to say the least. As a student and a sister survivor, I felt a responsibility to stay here at MSU and fight for positive change. I spoke at a Board of Trustees meeting last April and suggested a new resource center that caters specifically to survivors and students that identify with specific identities, such as gender, sexual orientation, and multicultural identities. As a proud member of the LGBTQ community, I felt that sexual assault resources for marginalized groups were lacking at MSU. Over the summer, I attended countless meetings and met with representatives from a variety of resources on campus. I learned that it's not a lack of resources, but a lack of space and awareness for these resources that's missing on this campus. MSU now has an opportunity to be a role model, to believe and support all survivors, no matter their age, race, gender, or sexual identity, to change the campus climate from one that promotes toxic masculinity and rape culture to one that radiates positivity, healing, trust, and safety. The planting of this tree is another step in the right direction for MSU. I hope this tree becomes a beacon of hope and comfort for all survivors. Thank you all for being here today, standing in support and solidarity with survivors everywhere. And an enormous thank you to Mark, Chung, Anna, and the museum for your continuous commitment to keep our story alive and show support while we continue to heal. Thank you.
We this year mark a really wonderful and remarkable emergence of the new unit, Prevention, Outreach, and Education, playfully called POE, and who, of course, has also been a wonderful partner to so many of us on this campus. And it's just wonderful to have the director of POE, Kelly Shweta, here with us today to share some words as we dedicate the Survivors Tree.
It's hard to follow all those wonderful words that everyone has been speaking. It is my honor to speak at this dedication. I have been doing sexual assault and relationship violence prevention work at this university for 11 years. In that time, I have witnessed both tremendous betrayal and tremendous courage at this institution. As Mark mentioned, the Prevention, Outreach, and Education department was formed April 30th of last year. Before that, we had only one full-time staff dedicated to prevention on this campus. We now have a team of 10, and the reason that I'm mentioning that is because all of last year we were in the process of hiring a wonderful, dedicated, passionate team. So we were bringing candidates to campus while the teal ribbons were all on campus. Everyone that we brought to campus commented they were inspired by that display. The teal ribbons, they unified the campus and became a symbol to elevate the voices that have been silenced. When I saw the teal ribbon display inside, it literally took my breath away. This tree is a permanent symbol of that voice and strength. We can see it from our office over in POE, and my staff can see it and watch it grow to become a wonderful symbol of strength. Thank you.
We've had so many friends along this journey, and the voices of many deans trying at a very difficult time sometimes to make a claim through the power of language and their words, through writing, for decency and compassion, and having the university finally live up to its founding promises. Those words really resonated through that very difficult and painful crisis period that we are not fully emerged from. And of all those voices, to my mind, among the most eloquent and beautiful and always ringing true has been Chris Long, the dean, whose college we see just behind us, the dean of the College of Arts and Letters. And Chris, thank you for all you've done, and we're so glad that you've agreed to sort of wrap things up today with some closing remarks.
In July of 2016, a storm moved across the campus. It was a warm day, and the storm came suddenly. All of a sudden, there were dime-sized hail falling from the sky, and I could see it from my office in Linton Hall. And when I emerged from the building, I saw that a great white oak tree had fallen. I really hadn't seen it before I saw it there on the ground. Martin Buber, the Jewish philosopher and theologian, talked about those moments when you come into the presence of the full being of another. And when he talks about that, his example is an encounter with a tree. At that moment when I saw that tree destroyed, I saw it for the first time. And what I didn't realize is that it continues to live. Thanks to the imagination of Frank Tilelski, who understood that the tree has deep roots, and that root system continues to nourish it. Frank mentioned that the tree is over 350 years old. That means it was here long before Michigan State was founded. It was here when the Anishinaabe, Three Fires, Confederacy of Ottawa, Ojibwa, Potawatomi peoples inhabited these lands. And so it tunes us into a different kind of time, intergenerational time. And as we plant this new beech tree, we plant it for ourselves and in honor of the courageous voices of the survivors who spoke in a transformative way in the courtroom in January of 2018. And their courage to speak the truth and to hold their abuser accountable and to hold the institutions that fail to protect them accountable are continuing to transform this university. And so as we plant this tree, we ask that its roots grow deep and nurture our attempts to cultivate a culture of care and a listening presence. And may those roots entwine with the roots of the resilient tree and the roots of the other trees on this campus, so that they make a vast network of support and care. And so we, as we encounter the tree, may learn to take care of one another, to listen, and to hear, and to take action upon what we learn in our encounters with one another every day. May that be the legacy of this tree, and may that be our legacy and our work ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean Long. This concludes the program. We do invite everyone to come and see the exhibition that the Sister Survivors have worked long and hard with the Allies on. We'll open the doors at 5:30. We'll be able at 6 o'clock to hear from Governor Whitmer, from other officials, from the Sister Survivors themselves, reflections, and then the exhibition itself will be open. There's wonderful art to see, both in the main gallery and upstairs. Jordan Fishman's beautiful painting, Together We Roar, Part 2, not to be missed on the second floor. It's going to be a wonderful evening. The exhibition will be open for a year, and the tree will be here a lot longer, we trust. And we hope it will be, as everyone has said, a place of hope and understanding, of listening, and also a place to remember that it's on all of us to hold love for one another in our hearts, and also to insist on accountability of all sorts, from individuals and from institutions. It's a tree that will, we hope, help us remember all of what we should be and what we may become. Thank you.
Thank you.